we're going to pivot directly into now the public proceedings of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, but I'd like for those of you that would like to stay. And so good evening, everyone. Welcome to the January meeting of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund for the City of Revere. My name is Joe Gravelisi, and I'm the chair. And you may have noticed that we have a gathering of folks in front, and it's because this meeting coincides with 9 days ago, the new elected officials for the City of Revere, including Mayor Keefe in his official capacity as duly elected mayor, began their terms. And so the mayor's transition team, which those of you have read about in the Revere Journal, as part of the sort of planning process for the mayor's first 100 days, has begun the process of discussing a number of important topics to the city. And obviously front and center for a lot of folks is housing and economic development, and particularly as it relates to our topic here, affordable housing. So this is kind of a little bit of a joint meeting. We have our regular meeting of the trust fund, but then we also have members of the mayor's transition team and committee here to participate in that conversation. So to begin the formal part of the proceedings, though, I am going to do a call of the roll. We have members that are present both in person and virtually. I'm going to call on those that are here virtually first. I see Deb Frank.
Here.
And Claire and Zerillo.
I'm here.
And Anayo.
Here.
There you go. Oh, Layla Pantry.
Here.
And Dean is not here. There's a Revere Housing Authority Board meeting. Jan Tumas.
Here.
Okay, and then I am present, and then present representing the city, we have Tom Skorowski, Lorena Escalero. So with that, I wanted to first just do a quick check-in, and this is something that'll be of interest to a lot of you that are here on the finances of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and where things stand. I think most of you that are part of the transition team are familiar with the Affordable Housing Trust, what it does, and Anayo has a quick update on kind of where we're at with the finances.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Anayo Swakey. Happy New Year to everyone. I'm going to report the current balance for the Affordable Housing Trust Committee as reported to me by the Assistant Budget Director, Santa Newton. The current amount is $772,174.62. This is the most recent sort of transactions was a $100,000 withdrawal to the Salem development on December 14th, 2023 last year. And in addition to that, we had some interest posted since our last update. The last budget update was, or the last interest update was $8,110.82. Thank you.
Thank you. And so that that update represented the first kind of major outlay from the Affordable Housing Trust since we started. So I think it's a great milestone for us to officially have really made significant funding on a project, which allowed us to increase the number of units. Tom mentioned it's a home ownership project on Salem Street in Revere. We were able to increase the number of affordable units as part of that, not only through the direct subsidy from the Affordable Housing Trust, but also the buy-in from the city unlocked an opportunity for them to get some funding from the state to grow the number of affordable units. So when we look at sort of strategies for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, how we can use it, how we can meet some of the needs of the community, I look at opportunities like that to kind of support developments that were coming online and support the affordable component of it. And then we also look at the opportunity to take either new developments or kind of developments that we purchase or partner on and make them affordable from the beginning. And so on that note, I know Lorena, we've been in touch a lot about what opportunities exist to, for instance, abandoned properties, tax title properties, things that have come through the pipeline, or opportunities that might exist for the city, for the trust to purchase property that we can use for redevelopment as affordable housing. And I'm not sure if we have any updates on that or things that you want to share on that topic, but I'd love to kind of just open that up as a topic of conversation for everyone here if you want to kick us off. Oh, they didn't give us there we go. Is that going to reach? Okay. Technical difficulties, please hold. All right. That makes more sense.
Good evening, Lorena Scalero, Community Development Planner. I don't have an update on tax titles, but I do have an update on the city side for all the other items on the agenda. Starting with the housing production plan. We're really excited to announce that the Housing Forum is scheduled for January 31st at the Romney Marsh Academy starting at 6 p.m. And so this month is full of outreach activities. We've translated, sorry, I don't know why I'm out of breath from.
It's from having to pull the microphone back and forth.
So we're working with our community liaisons on a variety of outreach strategies for this month. We've translated the flyers and surveys in Portuguese, Spanish, and Arabic. We'll be going to food pantries, at the Food for Free, at the First Congregational Church. We're also working on social media content to be sharing during these next few weeks. And I'd like to formally extend an invitation to you all and save the date and take the survey. Joe, I sent you the flyer, but I also would be happy to send you all the event information.
That'd be terrific. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you very much. And then is there, do we have an updated timeline, and this might be more of a Tom question, on Salem Street and kind of how that's moving forward?
Yeah, so the Broadway Capital is working on getting their affirmative fair housing marketing plan and lottery plan approved by CHAPA. It's basically a plan to be able to market and promote equal housing choice and opportunities for families and applicants who would normally have less access in seeing that information. And so on our end, this is probably like the first lottery that we're dealing with. So we're expecting the developer to comply with the requirements from CHAPA.
Terrific. And then another update that I know that we had, and I'm not sure if we have anything beyond that, as far as we can tell, it's not been affected by state budget cuts, which is good, is the line item that Senator Edwards and Representative Janino and Turco received $25,000 in support for a first-time homebuyer down payment assistance program in Revere. It seems like that the process has started for us to receive those funds. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. We're finalizing the contract. Hopefully by the next meeting, we should have funds. I think the ARPA manager, Miguel Oriana, already received notification about the funding that's coming.
And so obviously a big next step for that is going to be developing the process for how those funds are administered. I know that we've talked about partnering with Mass Housing, but I know we have to have a conversation about kind of how that's going to look. Do we know around how many people per year would be considered income eligible that are first-time home buyers in like an average year in Revere? Do we have data on that?
Well, we have data from the housing production plan that gives us a sense of the area median income.
Yeah. I'm just curious as to like what proportion of the demand, like this is intended to be a pilot program, but how big would it have to go to meet like the level of need? Yeah.
I think that the real challenge lies in what Deborah Frank on the board had mentioned at the last meeting with the interest rate environment and the scarcity of housing options there are. It is probably less about the eligible applicant and more about the eligible housing types. And I think 133 Salem Street will be one good example where if we have some smaller scale condo development opportunities, whether affordable or market rate, I think it provides a lower barrier to entry to get into home ownership. And I think those are going to be the chances where we can really take advantage of that program and take it to scale eventually.
Terrific. Thank you.
Excuse me, I have a question. What agencies are now preparing for classes for the first-time home buyers?
There will be a spring first-time homebuyer workshop with Chelsea Restoration, so I'll send you details on that when that's coming up.
Also, Lorena, you sent an email about 3 hours ago about a multifamily family unit property project, and you wanted us to take a look at it.
Yeah, and I sent an updated list of multifamily development projects that have been permitted, under construction, and they're under the pipeline for you to look at. The last 3 on that list are still in the planning phase, so it's a good opportunity if the Affordable Housing Trust Fund would like to support them with a few affordable units.
Yeah. And do we have a sense as to where there may be like ones that are particularly amenable to having that conversation, or is that kind of up to us to find out?
Tom, you can go.
I think the 2 best opportunities we have coming up, like I was saying earlier, I think when you talk about affordability and scale, it's really hard to get affordable projects, 20, 30 units, in a development of that size. But when you're getting to scale, like the Lee Trailer Park development, which will bring a planned unit development application to the Revere City Council in February, that's gonna have 10% of their 250 units will be affordable. And Overlook Ridge is the other, which is a roughly 310 unit development that'll be going in front of the council in February, March as well. 10% of those will be affordable. So I think the larger projects are probably the easiest ones and the ones that have been most receptive to the conversation. I think with the smaller, medium-sized developments, I'm not sure if the trust has quite the resources to help compel affordable development in that regard.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. And I would say my own kind of personal opinion, or I guess editorializing from the bench here, and welcome feedback. I would view the Leeds Trailer Park site as something that we should be looking at as a priority for the Affordable Housing Trust to try to figure out a way to subsidize additional affordability out of that project. I think that given what was there, given the history of the site, it's an obligation that we have, as a trust and as a community to ensure that there's as big of an affordability component as part of that project as possible. So that's my personal opinion on the matter. I don't know what the best approach, we can invite them to come to the next meeting, or we can have conversations between now and the next meeting, but I would view that one as something that would be a huge priority for me, for sure.
Also, Tom and Lorena, forgive me if you've done this already, but is there a framework for explaining our possible potential role benefits in this project? And 2, does that tie into your HDIP programs, Housing Development Initiative program that you mentioned here?
So 2 separate questions a bit, but the framework question I think will be what's developed through the housing production plan, and then the work that those consultants will be doing with the trust to develop a set of goals and strategies to accomplish those goals and operating principles, how to operate as a group. I think that's going to be really critical for you all to develop that framework to make those decisions. In terms of HDIP, and the other tools we're looking at are really tools that are in our disposal as a municipality and as to how we could incentivize affordable housing development. So we heard a lot about this when the inclusionary zoning amendment was brought before the council in August of 2022. There was a lot of concern if this would be an unfunded mandate. We say you shall do this, but if no developers choose to do that, we're actually working against 2 aims. Not only are we not getting the affordable housing development we're looking for, but we're not getting housing development generally. So I think we're looking at opportunities like HDIP or others to incent affordable housing development. Otherwise, it won't happen.
Thank you.
So other questions on these topics, either from board members or from those, Deb, if you want to add your thoughts, or from anyone that's here participating in the transition team? No? Okay, so I wanted to take a moment to just kind of piggyback or carry on some of the conversation that we were having in the prior meeting and kind of bring it forward to here, which is we have a few different public processes going on right now. We have the mayor's transition team, we have the housing production plan, and we have these regular meetings of the Affordable Housing Trust. And maybe I might put our Chelsea contingent on the spot here. And Jay and Paul, if you want to weigh in, one of the things that stood out to me is that there is such a huge discrepancy between the percentage of the stock that's considered affordable in Revere versus in Chelsea, even though I would imagine Chelsea's had a pretty similar amount, raw number of housing unit development as Revere. I don't know if I'm off on that, but I would guess it's pretty similar. It's
I think Revere's got a lot more.
okay.
We certainly have more housing stock in general.
Yeah.
So when you start with a bigger base, it's tougher to raise the percentage of as well.
Sure. But would you be able to talk us through a little bit, from, from your seat? Obviously, I know that there's an inclusionary zoning policy that doesn't exist in Revere, but other tools that have been used in Chelsea, to add to that subsidized housing inventory, including how, in your experience, you partnered with the Affordable Housing Trust, on some of these projects. Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks for having us, Jay Ash, member of the transition team, former city manager of Chelsea. So the question is, what did we do in Chelsea to raise the amount of affordability that is in the community? Paul Nowicki is with me. Paul was a former city councilor, now the head of the Chelsea Housing Authority. Together, we worked very closely in city government for almost a decade and a half, and proud to say that during our time, we increased the overall housing production in Chelsea by 10% of its housing stock, and much of that was affordable. I think the biggest lesson that I learned in Chelsea, that I talk to other people as I go around the state, is as much as a city and as much as an Affordable Housing Trust Board may want to increase housing stock and affordability, the city doesn't actually build housing.
Right.
The Affordable Housing Trust Board doesn't actually build housing. Our secret, one of our secrets in Chelsea has been to partner very closely with affordable housing developers and market rate housing developers who would build affordability. Developers that we got to know and trust, that understood our community, understood what our priorities of the community were, but also could come in and help us understand what options were available for us for development. So very close to us were our local housing developers, including the Chelsea Neighborhood Housing Services, which is now the Neighborhood Developers. You know them, they've done work in Revere. And we also let it be known to developers that are out there that we would be open for discussion about affordability and how to go forward on proceeding on developments. As you know, I left Chelsea and became the Secretary of Housing and Economic Development of the state, and I was pleased to invite people who had done work in Chelsea around the state, but I was also pleased to meet lots of other developers who were around the state who would come to communities that they felt welcomed in, that they felt they would have a reasonable dialogue with, and they felt like they could get to a yes if a yes was deserved. And that opened up the eyes of many to come to our community and invest in our community. So I think a thing that you all can do here in Revere City Hall, whether it's this group or this board or others, is to let it be known that that being a developer is not a bad thing. It can be a good thing, and that developers who believe very strongly about Revere and about its goals, its needs, and its opportunities, its strengths, and what it can do for both for residents and for the developers who are building. If you let it be known that you're open for a discussion, there'll be a lot more people that come forward. So that's number one. It's about relationships. I always believe that everything starts with a relationship. Second thing is you need to invest in yourself. It's really important that if you're going to say to the rest of the world, hey, believe in Revere, because we have all these wonderful things going on, but you're not willing to make that investment yourself, then people will not often believe you, or will find it more difficult to do work here. So we spent a lot of money, a lot of city money, invested a lot of city money, I should say, in ourselves. We bought properties that were underperforming, decadent, blighted properties, sometimes through urban renewal. I'm not suggesting you do an urban renewal program, although our urban renewal program in Chelsea has been very successful. There are other ways of doing it as well. The point is that we were willing to make money available to buy properties. We were willing to talk about tax relief to developers who came in and developed along the goals that we had for our community. We were willing to streamline the permitting process. Remember, time is money. And what I would say to developers whenever they would come into Chelsea is that you can spend 5 years maybe getting to a maybe in Boston, or you can come to Chelsea and in 90 minutes I can tell you whether you're gonna get your project done or not. And lived up to that. So time is money. So invest in yourself, invest in those who you believe in, and make sure the process works. The third thing I'll say, and I just said it in the private session that we had, is that the best people to first talk to about making investments are the people that know you the best, and they're the people who have been doing work here in Revere for years, for decades, for generations. And so I would look at developers large and small and make sure that you articulate what it is that you want to accomplish and see how you can work with them to get something done before I go out to the Greater Boston area. But I would not exclude anyone from Greater Boston. We had a great slogan in Chelsea. It was not ours. We inherited it from the first city manager, Guy Sanagate, who's now 86 years old, and we saw him over the weekend and is doing well. Guy Sanagate used to tell us at Chelsea City Hall, you plan the work, and then you work the plan. And I have heard of the various plans that you have here, which is very important to go through that planning process. But then being able to be loyal to that plan and work that plan, to be able to show people, being the developers, that you have a plan, and as long as they conform to that plan or can conform to that plan, and if they need some exceptions, there's a process to get to that, is really important. So I would encourage you, as you're thinking about this next opportunity with the new mayoral administration, to think about planning the work first, making sure that you've had an opportunity to talk within the community about what your goals are overall for a housing strategy, be it affordable or market rate, and then turn around and then work that plan from there. Last thing I want to say to you is that although I've been through Revere my entire life, have many fond memories of being in Revere, never have lived in Revere, never had the opportunity to live in Revere. I want to give you an outside perspective on what I see these days in Revere. You should all be incredibly hopeful that the hard work that you have put in so far to get to a point where opportunities are there for the taking, if you can now work the plan, is there for you. I think there's a very positive feeling outside of Revere about the leadership here in Revere, the ability to do good development in Revere, the ability of Revere as a community that is transforming into a community that is a 21st century community. And I say that because in the 20th century and the 19th century, you had people who lived here in the 18th century and the 19th century, right? But now that doesn't exist anymore, right? And what you've become is you've become a welcoming community that has been open to so many people from so many places, and you've seen in welcoming people that those people can love Revere just as much as somebody who's lived there their entire life. Mm-hmm. And so I would tell you that there's a generally good feeling outside about the leadership that's happening in Revere. There's still a blank slate when it comes to what is Revere going to be. That's both a challenge and an opportunity. I had a friend of mine who once said to me that the thing that he likes to look at the least is a blank piece of paper, because that meant that he had to fill out the whole paper. On the other hand, some people would say a blank piece of paper means that I have the opportunity to create what it is that I think, in this case, the community can be like. You have to decide whether it's a challenge or it's a virtue to have that blank piece of paper. But from the outside looking in, people are still waiting to see how you are defining yourself. I'll make one other observation relative to what we think from the outside. So, as I said, I had the fortune of being the Secretary of Housing for Economic Development for 4 years under Governor Baker. People want to live in cities. Now, for a lot of people, they think that means they want to live in Boston. For those who are fortunate enough to be able to live in Boston, I think that's a good thing. But what we know is that not everybody can afford to live in Boston. And frankly, not everybody wants to be in Boston. People want to be in vibrant communities that have commerce going on, that have culture going on, that have recreation going on, that have access to public transportation and access to the internet and so many other things. And people want to be in Revere. People want to be in Revere. You need to provide them with the opportunity via more housing stock. You also need to continue to figure out other ways of attracting employers who will work with the people who are living here, or will look forward to the people that are living here working for them. People want to come to cities, and you have that opportunity because you are a city with all those great resources already, what we call in the development world, great bones. And so I think there's a real opportunity here. And I'm encouraged that Mayor Keefe is put together a transition committee to think about what the opportunities are. I'm encouraged with the conversations I've had with the city council and with your state legislative delegation that has a great reputation on Beacon Hill. I encourage you to continue to listen to each other and look for opportunities. I encourage you to be bold in your thinking, but also be practical in your thinking. Don't try to be something that you're not. Instead, look at what your greatest assets are. Your greatest assets being a great beach and tourism. Your greatest assets being proximate to Logan Airport in downtown Boston. Your great assets being relatively affordable. Affordable is relative. You're affordable compared to Boston. You're not affordable compared to what you were 20 years ago, but your relative affordability. Your great public transportation. Your great access to the Metropolitan Highway System. Your great access to lots of employers in healthcare and culture and recreation, not only here but around the region. Take advantage of those great opportunities, and I'm sure you're going to have lots of great success.
Thank you. Thank you, Jay. And I'm gonna, so Claire Anzurillo, who's our vice chair and is participating remotely, and is also a city employee and someone who, you know, like a lot of us, is someone who grew up in the community, valued member of the community, and we're all looking at housing costs as an impediment to, you know, our future in the community. She asked the question that kind of goes back to something that we talked about in our private meeting, you know, which is that the tension that never goes away, which is how do you kind of balance out that tension between investing in the community, investment coming into the community, but then supporting residents that are struggling with increasing rents, increasing prices, et cetera. And obviously, there's no silver bullet to that question, but I think that, you know, I'd love to kind of hear you kind of follow up on that. I'll say that from my standpoint, what we do at the Affordable Housing Trust is an important part of that. And selfishly, I'll advocate, you know, as both the chair of the Affordable Housing Trust, and then also as a member of the transition team, we need a permanent, sustainable funding source for the Affordable Housing Trust so that we can partner with, whether it be, you know, the Lee's Trailer Park development, or whether it be Overlook Ridge, or whether it be other developments that come down the line and say, we may not have an inclusionary zoning policy, but we have funding and resources to have you know, have a affordability component as part of it, so that we have that. And then as far as investing in, you know, current existing residents, that's where you also want to make sure that you're providing an exceptional level of city services. So I'll let you kind of follow up with your thoughts on that, but that's kind of my thoughts from seats of being here as part of the board.
Yeah, I think you've started off the discussion very smartly. Tension isn't necessarily a bad thing. As we were discussing in our private meeting, you have to find spaces to agree to be disagreeable, or you know, that your opinion is your opinion, my opinion is my opinion, and there are plenty of other people who have different opinions, and no one opinion is right, no one opinion is wrong, but coming together, 60,000 plus people in Revere, your opinions then form what the goals and efforts should be in the city of Revere. We were talking earlier about affordable housing. Good opportunity to talk about this here, and that Chelsea has the 4th largest percentage of affordable housing of any city in the state. You know that the state's goal for every city and town is 10%. Chelsea is almost at 17%, so significantly over, 70%
We're at
over.
7% in Revere, I believe.
And you, and in context, Revere is at 7%. Even with 17% affordability, 70% over what the state goal is, even being the 4th highest, there's still tension because people want more affordability. That's always going to happen. I think the most successful communities are ones that don't say that's a wrong perspective, but instead say we need to figure out how to do both. And you can't do both. What that means is that affordable housing advocates need to understand that sometimes market rate housing is an important thing to happen. What happens with market rate housing? Market rate housing brings people with disposable income. Those people with disposable income spend that income in local stores. The disposable income makes tax revenue available for city government, so the city government can provide services, and makes for a healthier community. And market rate developers need to recognize that affordability is an important part too, and that people that have grown up in Revere and haven't earned as much as maybe others deserve still the opportunity to live in a Revere that continues to blossom and be its best version of itself. So that tension should be there. But people need to come to the table with an understanding that nobody is going to get 100% of what they want, and instead they need to look at the bigger picture. And we talked earlier in our transition meeting about setting goals. And one of the goals for a community needs to be that you need to balance your budget. A slogan that we had in Chelsea was that all good things happen from a balanced budget. If you don't have a balanced budget, you're constantly fighting about what are you going to cut. And that's never a good fight to have. So one of the goals of a development plan, and including housing development, is to help raise local revenues so you can support services. But other goals of the development plan include eradicating blight in neighborhoods. There are any number of times that in our community and other communities, you've used housing development as an opportunity to help a developer come in and overpay for a piece of property that's been blighted for years. We had properties that have been blighted for decades. We had a property in Chelsea that had been blighted for so long that there was a car on the property that had a tree that actually grew up through that car. We provided an incentive for a developer to come in and redevelop that property, and as a result, took that blighting property and created something that we were quite proud of. It was the first hotel that we built in Chelsea. Goals of your housing development strategy can be about raising local revenue, can be about eradicating blight, it can be about bringing in people who are going to support small businesses, and it certainly can be about helping Revere residents stay and be able to afford to live here.
And thank you for that. And I want to, make sure to open it for other comments too. I also am aware that we overlapping with the Conservation Commission today, so I'll try to be timely with our comments. There's going to be some opportunities for the Affordable Housing Trust, hopefully, if the housing bond bill that the Healy Driscoll administration put forward to the legislature, and with including the advocacy of Senator Edwards and Representatives Janino and Turco, to include a lot of funding for affordable housing trusts as part of that. So we're going to have an opportunity to really look at what are some of the things that we really want to prioritize, and it goes back to some of the goals that we set when we first started this process. And it goes to, and by the way, Claire said thank you for your comments. To me, when I think about what Claire said, it's looking at, when you're talking about supporting existing residents, it's creating those kinds of programs like we talked about, like that first-time home buyer down payment assistance program. The state has a program, but layering a city program on top of that is important because it costs more here than it does in the median, statewide. So you want to have additional support. And we also have a resident whose median income is lower than the median income for the state, average around the state. So you want to be able to provide some additional support on top of that. So that's one example. Another example is providing those deed-restricted affordable homeownership opportunities. I don't want to let drop. I'm assuming that we still haven't heard back from Habitat for Humanity. They kind of fell off from us a little bit in terms of doing some of those home repairs and some of the small-scale projects, but we should continue to be on top of opportunities like that, where we think about folks that are aging in place. How can the Affordable Housing Trust Fund support that? So when I look towards our next meeting and things that I want to make sure that we put on the agenda, I'd like to invite the folks from Lee's trailer park development to participate in that and to have some conversations about how we can support that. I imagine that by the time we have our next meeting, we're going to have our earmark in from the state for the first-time home buyer down payment assistance program, so we can work on program design for that. And we should really begin looking at what's going to be our next home ownership project, and I think that if it's not going to be a tax title property, because maybe there's just not one coming through, and we don't want to sit around waiting. Obviously we'd rather everyone's paying their taxes and there not be blighted property in the city, so it's a good thing if that continues to be the case. But maybe we do want to look at the market right? And look at what the opportunities are for us to look at something small scale on the market and explore what that would look like. I want to make sure that everyone has a chance to offer their comments and feedback before we wrap up and turn it over to the Conservation Commission. So I will stop blabbing, because I tend to do that, and just see if other folks want to offer their thoughts or reactions to what we've talked about so far. You good? What's that? Anyone on Zoom? No, seeing none. Anyone in attendance? No? Okay, well, on that note, then, I know that we've got another meeting waiting, so I appreciate everyone's patience, and I'll offer up two motions. Well, I guess the second would be the motion to adjourn. The first would be, I've gotten some feedback that we want to consider moving the date of the February meeting, because the February meeting is on February 14th, which I understand is a day that's important to some people. But if we moved it up to the 7th, though, I think that would overlap with Conservation Commission again. Is that right, Lorena? So I don't want to do that. So we're going to have to explore some other options for that. I know that we've looked at maybe, the week after or the day before. So I just say stay tuned. I'm going to work with Linda in the mayor's office on scheduling a date and time where the chamber's available. And then the second would be a motion to adjourn for this meeting. Do I hear a second?
I second the motion to adjourn, and 21st conflicts with the Bruins game.
That's very critical to me, as you all know. Thank you for that. All right, well, thank you all, and hearing no objection, we're adjourned, and we'll turn it over to the Conservation Commission. Thank you for your patience. Yeah.